The one financial habit that predicts retirement success more than realizing they're making it. If you want a comfortable retirement, you need to earn more money. Get the raise, land the higher paying job, switch careers into something that pays better, and eventually the retirement problem solves itself.
And look, income helps. I'm not going to sit here and tell you money doesn't matter, because that would be a little insulting and also just wrong. But here's the thing that took me way too long to actually understand. And once I did, it kind of rewired how I think about all of this.
Two people can earn the exact same salary, work the exact same number of years, and end up in completely different financial universes by the time they retire. Not because one got lucky with the market, and not because one had some secret investment nobody else knew about. It comes down to a single habit. One behavior that quietly outperforms income as a predictor of whether someone retires comfortably or retires scared.
My name is Rick, and if you've watched anything else on this channel, you know I spend an unreasonable amount of time thinking about the gap between people who end up financially secure and people who don't. And after going through a genuinely obsessive amount of research, personal finance studies, real accounts from retirees, and just the raw math of how money actually behaves over decades, I keep landing on the same conclusion. Income is not the deciding factor. It's not even close. What actually predicts retirement success, more reliably than salary, more reliably than which stocks you pick, more reliably than almost anything else, is whether you've automated the habit of paying yourself first. That's it. That's the whole thing. And I know that sounds almost too simple to be the answer, so let's actually walk through why it matters this much.
Let's talk about two people. I'll call them Dave and Maria. Same industry, same job title, same salary, right around $85,000 a year for most of their careers. On paper, financial advisors would treat them identically. Same income bracket, same tax situation, roughly the same lifestyle costs, given where they live. But here's where they diverge. Dave contributes to his 401k. Sort of. He put in 3% when he started because that's what got him the full employer match, and he never touched it again.
Every raise he got over the next 20 years went straight into his lifestyle. Nicer car, bigger apartment, then a bigger house, more dining out, because why not? He earned it. Maria did something different, and it wasn't dramatic. She started at 6%, and every single time she got a raise, before she adjusted to the new number in her checking account, she bumped her contribution up by 2 percentage points. She never saw the extra money. It moved automatically before it ever became spendable in her mind. By year 20, Dave is still contributing 3%. Maria is contributing 24%. Same income the entire time. Wildly different outcomes.
Now let's actually put numbers to this, because vague statements about habits don't mean much without the math behind them. Assume both of them are earning that same $85,000 average over 20 years, and assume a reasonably conservative 7% average annual return, which is roughly in line with long-term market history when you smooth out the good years and the bad ones. Dave's 3% contribution works out to about $2,550 a year. Over 20 years of compounding at 7%, that ends up somewhere around $110,000. Not nothing, better than doing nothing at all, but nowhere close to retirement security. Maria's 24% contribution works out to about $20,400 a year. Over that same 20 years at that same 7% return, that ends up somewhere north of $880,000. Same income, same time frame, same market conditions. An 8-figure difference in outcome that traces back almost entirely to one decision, repeated automatically year after year without either of them thinking about it on a daily basis.
And this is the part that I think gets lost in most personal finance conversations. People assume the difference between financially secure retirees and financially anxious ones is some kind of investing talent, some secret knowledge about which fund to pick or when to buy or sell. It's almost never that. It's savings rate, applied consistently, automated so it doesn't rely on willpower.
Financial planners will often tell you 10 to 15% is a reasonable minimum to aim for.
But the people who end up genuinely ahead, the ones who retire without anxiety, are usually somewhere in the 20 to 30% range. And they didn't get there through some heroic act of discipline. They got there the way Maria did, 1 or 2 percentage points at a time. Quietly, automatically, never really feeling the loss because they never adjusted their lifestyle to the money in the first place.
This is actually where high earners get tripped up more than you'd expect. You'd think somebody making $200,000 a year would automatically be ahead of somebody making $85,000. And sometimes that's true, but not nearly as often as you'd assume. Lifestyle inflation is a genuinely brutal force. The moment income goes up, spending tends to go up right alongside it. Bigger house, nicer car, private school, more vacations, and pretty soon someone earning well over double what Dave or Maria made is staying only saving 4 or 5% of their income because every raise got absorbed into a slightly more expensive version of the same life.
Income creates the potential for financial security. It doesn't create the security itself. The habit does that. And a habit that isn't automated is a habit that's competing every single month against every reason not to do it. A big expense, a bad month, a moment of wanting to feel like the raise actually changed something.
So if the habit is the thing that matters, the next question is obviously, what if you can't save 20 or 30% right now? Maybe you're early in your career, maybe you've got debt, maybe life is just expensive in ways that make a high savings rate feel like a fantasy someone else gets to live. And this is genuinely important to hear. The habit works at any percentage. The mechanism that made the difference for Maria wasn't that she started at some impressively high number. She started at 6%, which is close to nothing in the grand scheme of a 30-year career. What mattered was that the increase happened automatically, attached to raises she hadn't gotten used to spending yet. If you're starting at 3% right now because that's genuinely all you can manage, that's a completely reasonable place to start. The habit isn't the size of the number today. It's the mechanism that makes the number grow without requiring a fresh decision every single time.
There's a psychological reason this works so well, and it's worth understanding because it explains why so many well-intentioned people fail to save consistently, even when they genuinely want to. Willpower is a depleting resource. If you rely on actively deciding to save money every single month, you're competing against decision fatigue, against emotional spending, against every unexpected expense that shows up and makes saving feel like the thing you'll get back to next month. Automation removes the decision entirely. The money moves before it becomes a choice, and when a raise happens and the increase happens automatically alongside it, you genuinely never experience the moment where the money was in your hand and you had to give it up. You're saving more, and your brain never registers a sacrifice because there wasn't one. This is also why the savings rate habit outperforms almost every other financial decision people obsess over. People spend enormous energy trying to pick the right fund, trying to time when to buy, trying to figure out if now is a good moment to invest or if they should wait for a dip. And meanwhile, the actual determining factor of their financial future was sitting quietly in the background the entire time, completely unaffected by any of that anxiety, whether they were feeding the machine consistently. Compounding doesn't care how clever you were about market timing. It cares about how much capital you gave it and for how long. Dave gave it less for the same amount of time, and the gap compounded right alongside the money. I want to be honest about something, because I think it's easy to hear a story like Dave and Maria's and feel a little bit of dread if you recognize yourself as more of a Dave. 20 years of a lower contribution rate feels like a mistake you can't undo. But here's the actual encouraging part of this. The habit works the same way at 45 as it does at 25. It works the same way whether you're starting today at 3% or you've been at 15% for a decade already. The math changes based on when you start. Sure, more time is always better, but the mechanism itself, automating the increase so it never depends on a fresh decision, is available to you literally today, regardless of what your last 20 years looked like. The only real mistake is assuming the habit doesn't matter because you didn't start it years ago. So if you're watching this and thinking about your own situation, here's the actual homework. And it takes about 10 minutes. Log into your retirement account today. Find your current contribution percentage and increase it by 1 or 2 points right now. Not next year, not after the next raise, today. You will not feel it in your take-home pay in any meaningful way. And then, the next time you get a raise, do it again, before you get used to the new number. That's the entire strategy. It's not exciting, it's not going to make a compelling headline about a hot stock or a clever tax loophole. But over 20 or 30 years, this one habit, done automatically and consistently, will outperform almost every other financial decision you could possibly make, regardless of what you earn.
Because that's really the point here. Retirement success was never actually about being a brilliant investor or landing some enormous salary. It was about building a system that didn't require you to be disciplined every single day for 3 decades straight. The people who retire comfortably aren't smarter than everyone else, and they're usually not earning dramatically more either.
They just built one habit, automated it, and let time do what time does. If this gave you something to actually go do this week, that's the whole point. Bump your contribution rate up, even just a little, and let it run. Subscribe to this channel if you want more of this kind of breakdown. Drop a comment if you want me to run the numbers on your specific situation. And I'll see you in the next one.